Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's quickly, in fact, then also rope in Sree Iyer joining us on a Skype connection. Sree Iyer, this is something that's causing a lot of heartburn to policymakers. The massive trade surplus that China runs, it's at the heart of the issue between US and China. Likewise, it's really one of the central issues for for India-China equation as well, which is that India needs to find a way to resolve this growing deficit that it runs when it comes to China.
You know, one of the things that India can do is that it can offer to sell raw goods to China in exchange for finished goods from China. I mean, like raw material, for instance, you know, whatever goes into making of finished products, India can be a source of that. Right now, Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand, and other countries do that. With them, China has actually a deficit. So India can be one of the raw material suppliers. However, we have to see what exactly that is. The other thing that India can do is to insist on China to build some of its products for Indian consumption in India itself. That is not too far-fetched an idea, because India also, remember, needs to create a lot of jobs. Soon, India is going to overtake China in population, and therefore, you know, India needs to have more jobs. And India can ask China to come, you know, build their factories in India and build you know, employ local labor. For example, Taiwan had a big role to play in China's growth, right from 1998, I think, up until now. For 20 plus years, it was not at all unusual for Taiwanese companies to have like a part of their labor force come and work in China, bring the Chinese factories up to speed, and they would just keep rotating their staff between mainland China and Taiwan. This was a well-honed cycle. That is how China got up to speed, because Taiwan was already at a fairly advanced level in terms of technology. And they imparted the technical know-how to China as to how to manufacture things for in an efficient manner. I mean, I've eyewitness to some of these things. I've been to China, mainland China. I watched how the Taiwanese engineers would come there. And the one thing that I must tell you, though, the conditions, the working conditions in Chinese factories are almost inhuman. If you can picture, okay. The factory will be in the middle, and around the factory they'll have, you know, residential quarters, and they would pack those quarters to the gills. I mean, if somebody is doing an 8-hour shift, right, that bed will be used by somebody else while this person is working. It was really bad. And I hope things have improved since then. But be that as it may, China had really figured out how to make things in an inexpensive manner. So I'm hopeful that some sort of a benefit for both sides will happen through these talks. Okay. I mean, India certainly has a higher capacity to do things which are more computerized. You know, in terms of, you know, okay. If you look at skill levels, India is slightly higher than China, although China might have caught up now.
Okay, I cannot help but notice that Sree Iyer is also dressed in a traditional Tamil attire. I'm assuming it's a vishti as well that he is wearing, though absolutely. Of course in the Skype, the frame that we are seeing, we cannot know, but yes, so traditional Tamil attire for Sree Iyer as well. Narayan Tirupati. But Sree Iyer, taking off on the RCEP front, you know, it's really being seen as essentially a gateway by China into India to flood more of Chinese goods, because, you know, some of the other countries, India already has these free trade agreements. So essentially RCEP is meant to give more access to India for China.
It's not a bad thing per se, because remember that as much as we say that we are not having, you know, jobs created in India, a lot of things have become cheap. Plus, the inflation has been very low. Why do you think that is? That is primarily because the cost of goods manufactured from China that are coming into India have been fairly at the same level. Now, having to him, and on the other thing about terrorism, CPEC, Pakistan? Why did Pakistan go and rush to meet Xi just before he left for India? I wouldn't put too much, focus on that. But let's see what India can export to China. And I have a couple of out-of-the-box ideas. Number one, India's Bollywood. Why isn't Ekta Kapoor translating some of her, mega soaps into Chinese? This is apolitical. It happens in every household. Ghar Ghar Ki Kahani. Why can't they have some of these soaps, translated into Chinese and sell it to the Chinese audiences? Other thing, Amar Chitra Katha, because both these countries, share a history that goes back thousands of years.
Yes.
And Amar Chitra Katha's comics would be a great hit in China if we can. By the way, there's not one Chinese. Mandarin is one of the languages,
Yes.
but there are many dialects.
Yes.
So essentially, this could be a huge cottage industry, and these are the kind of things that India should try and sell in return to China. That way, what happens is, you bring down the deficit. Not only that, India can do amazing things with, movies, ads, anything to do with creativity. India is right up there with Hollywood and Los Angeles. I'm challenging you. Some of the ads that come out of India are just out of the world. So these are the things that India needs to do, because China also needs to consume what it grows. And
Yes.
the way you do that is by having slick ads. Let India produce those slick ads for them. So first of all, many of the Chinese Indian schools should start learning Chinese as a language.
Okay.
We need to start investing in it from that point of view.
Mr. Iyer, if I start the language debate, trust me, this entire debate is going to be completely derailed.
But this is Chinese.
Yes,
This is
I
Mandarin.
know, but it was meant in a light. Make separately, but let's take them one at a time. There is trade, there's terror, there is maritime security, border issues, there are enough and more. Let's take them one by one. Sree Iyer, what is it that you would like to come in here, sir, on?
Yes. Before we get into topics, I just want to clarify one thing. I didn't talk about movies. I talked about soap operas. I mean, if you go to China and watch a TV channel, there is not much to watch. And I'm sure the Chinese people will take on to, mega soaps, which are essentially about families, issues, and so on and so forth. That is an export item. Music can also be exported. For example, you are a dancer yourself. You could do a theme based on the life of Buddha. That will be very well received, I'm sure, there. All I'm trying to say, start thinking outside the box. Don't just, limit ourselves to a few things and say, I'll only do these things, you should buy these things from me. As far as what she is going to talk to Modi about, if Modi doesn't bring up Kashmir, for sure he will not, because China is occupying Aksai Chin, which is also part of POK. So why would they bring it up? As far as terrorism is concerned, again, China wouldn't bring it up, because if you remember, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State of the United States, tweeted out his concerns about how the Uyghur Muslims were being treated in China. The most important thing, and please give me a few minutes, a few seconds more. Yesterday evening, while India slept, a phase 1 agreement has been put in place between US and China. And what this means is that Xi is under that much less pressure today than he was yesterday, because the relationship between US and China is kind of being rebonded. One of the things that China is going to do is to start buying food grains from US, which was a huge issue, because this is distributed across the granary of US, and all the farmers will finally say, oh, okay, now I can start selling soybeans again to China. The second thing China has agreed to is to respect the intellectual property rights of US. I have to look at the fine print to see what it really means, but this is the first time that China has even accepted that US has the intellectual property rights over many of the products. This could mean that Huawei and others have to pay a licensing fee. I'm hopeful that that will happen. And if that happens, that sort of levels the playing field a bit. And that would only mean that US companies can also play in many of the market that they almost automatically cede to China and Taiwan and other countries. So some of these things are sure to affect the talks between India and China today, because China would say, I have preserved my, big bread and butter. And there could be some toughening of stances also. Let's wait and see how it plays out.
That's a very relevant point you've made, sir. that if there is any repair that is taking place as far as the US-China equation is concerned, with the economy at the heart of it, how does that impact the Indo-Chinese discussions, given that we are saying again and again that trade could be the big issue?
The world.
All right, Sree Iyer wants to come in there.
I want to thank Tirupati Narayanan for clarifying the aid to Mongolia. That's a very good thing on his part. He must have gone and done his homework. And thank you very much for the update. So let's just look at what India is facing in terms of how it needs to take back POK. There is reliable information that 4,000 to 5,000 irregulars have masked up on the LOC side, and they want to enter into India. It's sort of like restaging what happened in 1947. And Imran Khan is telling them, don't go, don't cause a situation. You're playing into India's hand. But you think anything in Pakistan happens without the army's concurrence? So there is something that is going on there. So we have to see what exactly is going to play out, what Pakistan's plans are. But I think before we even think about POK, I think India needs to do a few things to kind of clean its own house. I would like to see the uniform civil code passed, and then the NRC taken up for the whole of the country. It's no longer Bangladeshis just coming and taking up residence in the border states. You see Bangladeshis in as far down south as Kanyakumari. It is just essentially, they are just blended in. And India needs to take a hard call. Do you want these people here, or do you want to send them back to their native country? So let's take care of that. And then India can go to POK, because India will have to do a huge weed out in POK of Punjabi Pakistanis who have come and occupied POK. Essentially, they are the ones who are, calling the shots in POK. The native Mirpuris and the Kashmiris are not having a good time there. So there's a lot of work to do. But before we take that step of crossing into POK, first India needs to put its house in order.
What will the outcome be is the key question we are asking with us on the panel. All right, Sree Iyer, I want to bring you in, sir. On the display is these visuals. The question to ask is, what will be the Mahabalipuram spirit?
I think Modi should tell Xi Jinping what democracy means, because Hong Kong was a 99-year British colony, and now Hong Kong is still finding itself to be in a bit of a problem meshing with the rest of the mainland China. And I can understand why. Remember, in Hong Kong, you drive to the left of the road, just like we do in India. Whereas mainland China, they drive to the right of the road. I mean, the differences come from right there. The power supply, I believe Hong Kong is 220 volts, and I think even the plug at sockets, those are different. So it's not something where you're talking about people being of the same country. There are many differences. Also, Hong Kong is used to a little bit more elbow room in terms of expression and so on and so forth, but China is essentially stifling them. I'll tell you one real striking example. In Hong Kong, there was an iPhone app that allowed the protesters to find out where the meetings were happening, where the protests were happening, so everybody could congregate there very quickly. This was an app that was provided on iPhone, but the Chinese government forced Apple to remove that app. Why? Because Apple has a $43 billion exposure.
Yes.
That was the amount of money they made last year selling iPhones in mainland China and Hong Kong. And they removed the app. See, now this is all on the cloud, right? Apple can turn something off or on instantly like a switch. So, this is like Big Brother attitude. But Modi can tell Xi Jinping, listen, buddy, there is something called as democracy. People are allowed to express their views. This is how we do it in India. Look at what I see. I see 100 arrows every day, but still I'm strong and fresh.
Yes.
You just have to take it in the spirit.